Lisa Morgan sat at her control station, watching the stars through the massive viewing window of the Galactic Council monitoring station. The station orbited Kepler 442b, a blue and green world that reminded her of Earth. She had been working the night shift for 3 years now, listening to radio signals from across the galaxy. Most nights were quiet. Ships checking in, routine trade communications, and the occasional diplomatic message between worlds. Lisa liked the peaceful work. As Chief Communications Officer, she made sure all the important messages reached the right people. Tonight felt different. The scanning equipment had been picking up strange signals from the outer rim for the past hour. The computer said the signals came from the Geltar system, home to the Ether people. Lisa knew about the Ether from her training. They were beautiful beings made of living crystal, who had never fought a war in their 50,000-year history. The main communication board suddenly lit up with red warning lights. An emergency signal was coming through on the priority channel. Lisa quickly put on her headset and opened the transmission. The voice that came through was unlike anything she had ever heard. It sounded like wind chimes mixed with crystal bells, musical but filled with terror. The universal translator worked hard to change the Ether language into words she could understand. This is Elder Resonance Keeper Veltar of the Ether Collective. We send this message to all beings in the galaxy. We need help. Something terrible has awakened in the dark spaces between the stars. They call themselves the Void Devourers, and they consume everything in their path. Lisa felt her heart start beating faster. The Ether never asked for help. They were one of the oldest and wisest species in the galaxy. If they were scared, something was very wrong. The message continued. 3 of our outer colonies have gone silent. Our long-range sensors show that their star systems no longer exist. Where planets and suns once shone, there is now only empty space. These creatures eat matter itself, leaving nothing behind. They are heading toward our homeworld. The crystal voice started to break with emotion. We have no weapons. We have no armies. Our people have never known violence. We build art and study the universe, but we do not know how to fight. Please, if anyone in the galaxy can help us, we beg you to come. We do not want to die. The message ended with coordinates to the Geltar system and a plea to hurry. Lisa sat in shocked silence for a moment. Then her training kicked in. She immediately sent copies of the message to every major government and military force in the galaxy. The first response came from the Zephyrian Empire within an hour. Lisa expected good news. The Zephyrians had the largest fleet in the galaxy with warships the size of cities. Their message was short and cold. The Geltar system is outside our territory. The Zephyrian Empire does not risk its forces for distant problems. This matter does not concern us. Lisa could not believe what she was reading. The Ether were going to be wiped out, and the most powerful military in the galaxy did not care because it was not their problem. The next response came from the Corvin hegemony. The Corvin were known as the best fighters in the galaxy. Surely they would help. But their message was even worse than the Zephyrian response. The Corvin hegemony fights only for Corvin interests. These Void Devourers are unknown to us. We will not waste lives fighting creatures we do not understand for people who cannot defend themselves. One by one, the responses came in from every major power. The Ethereal Collective, beings of pure energy who were almost as old as the Ether, simply said they did not involve themselves in material conflicts. The Trade Federation worried about the cost. The Silicon Brotherhood said their computer model showed the mission had a 90% chance of failure. Each rejection made Lisa more angry. These were supposed to be civilized species. They had technology, resources, and power. But when peaceful people faced extinction, they all found excuses to look the other way. By the end of her shift, every single major government in the galaxy had refused to help. Some gave reasons, others just ignored the message completely. Lisa printed out all the responses and took them to her supervisor, Commander Harris. They are all saying no, she told him. Every single one. The Ether are going to die and nobody cares. Commander Harris looked through the responses and shook his head. I am not surprised. Most species only care about their own problems. The Ether have been neutral for so long that nobody feels they owe them anything. But this is genocide, Lisa said. These Void Devourers are going to kill millions of innocent people. I know, Harris replied. But we are just a monitoring station. We report the news. We do not make decisions about who gets saved. Lisa went home to her small apartment feeling sick. She could not stop thinking about the crystal voice begging for help. That night she could not sleep. She kept checking the communications from Zeltar. More ether colonies were going silent. The Void Devourers were getting closer to their homeworld. 3 days later, Lisa was back at work when another message came through. This one was from Captain Jake Sullivan at Luna Command, the human military base on Earth's moon. Lisa had sent the ether distress call to every species in the galaxy, including humanity. The humans were new to galactic society, having only joined 5 years ago. Most aliens saw them as primitive and unimportant. Captain Sullivan's message was different from all the others. We received the distress call from the ether. We may not have the biggest ships or the best technology, but we have something the other species seem to have lost. We have hearts. I'm putting together a volunteer task force to help the ether. We leave in 1 week. Lisa read the message 3 times. The humans were going to help. Not because they had to, not because it benefited them, but because it was the right thing to do. She immediately sent a reply back to Captain Sullivan. Captain, this is Lisa Morgan at Galactic Monitoring Station 7. I want you to know that every major power in the galaxy has refused to help the ether. You will be going alone. The odds are not good. The response came back quickly. Ms. Morgan, I know the odds. My people have faced bad odds before. We have a saying on Earth, the only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing. We will not do nothing. Lisa felt tears in her eyes. Finally, someone was going to try to save the ether. It did not matter that humanity was considered weak by galactic standards. It did not matter that they would probably fail. What mattered was that they were going to try. She opened a secure channel to Zeltar and sent a message to Elder Veltar. Elder, this is Lisa Morgan of the Galactic Council. I have news. The humans of Earth are coming to help you. Their fleet is small, but their hearts are large. Do not lose hope. The reply came back filled with gratitude. Thank you for this news, Lisa Morgan. We have studied the humans since they joined the galactic community. They are young and their technology is simple, but they have something we have seen in no other species. They have the ability to find hope where others see only darkness. We will wait for them. Lisa looked out at the stars and smiled for the first time in days. Somewhere out there, Captain Jake Sullivan and his volunteers were getting ready to face an enemy that had scared off the entire galaxy. They were probably going to die trying, but at least they were going to try. The ether had asked the galaxy for help. Only humanity had answered. Captain Jake Sullivan stood in the briefing room at Luna Command, looking at the 12 people who had volunteered for what everyone knew was a suicide mission. The room was quiet except for the soft hum of life support systems. Through the window, Earth hung like a blue marble against the black of space. Jake had been ordered by Earth Command to ignore the ether distress call. His superior, General Brooks, had made it very clear that humanity was too new to galactic politics to risk making enemies. But Jake could not forget the desperate voice in that transmission. Somewhere in the galaxy, millions of innocent people were about to die and nobody wanted to help them. So Jake had made a choice. He sent out a message to every human military base, every exploration ship, and every cargo hauler in the solar system. He asked for volunteers to help save the ether. He expected maybe a few crazy pilots to respond. Instead, he got hundreds of replies. The first person to walk into his office had been Commander Amy Patterson. Amy was known throughout the fleet as the smartest tactical officer humanity had ever produced. She had studied every major space battle in galactic history and could tell you exactly why each side won or lost. Captain Sullivan, she had said, I want to volunteer for the ether mission. Jake looked at her file on his computer screen. Amy was up for promotion to captain and had her pick of any assignment in the fleet. You know this mission is not approved by command, right? If we do this, we will probably be court-martialed when we get back. If we get back, Amy smiled. Sir, I joined the military to protect people. The ether are people. They need protecting. It does not matter if they are not human. The next volunteer was Lieutenant Ben Cooper, a young engineer who worked in the Experimental Technology Division. Ben was only 25 years old, but he had a gift for making alien technology work with human systems. Other engineers followed the instruction manuals. Ben looked at alien machines and figured out how to make them better. Lieutenant Cooper, Jake had asked, why do you want to risk your life for aliens you have never met? Ben had thought for a moment before answering. Captain, my grandfather used to tell me stories about World War II. He said the thing he was most proud of was not the battles he fought, but the people he saved. I want to be proud of my life too. Dr. Rachel Green was the third volunteer. She was a xenobiologist who had spent years studying ether culture. Rachel could speak their language better than most universal translators and understood their way of thinking. The ether are the most peaceful species in the galaxy, she explained to Jake. They have never hurt anyone. They spend their lives creating beautiful art and studying the stars. If we let them die, we lose something precious that can never be replaced. More volunteers kept coming. Tony Williams was a former Marine sergeant who had left the military to work on Mars. When he heard about the mission, he took the first transport back to Earth and brought his entire old unit with him. These void devourers sound like bullies to me, Captain, Tony had said. I spent 20 years in the Marines learning how to deal with bullies. You point me at them and I will figure out how to hurt them. Captain Elena Rodriguez ran a small cargo company with her own ship. It was not much to look at, just an old freighter she had bought used and modified over the years. But Elena knew how to fight. She had been running supplies to human colonies on the dangerous edge of space for 10 years. My ship is not pretty, but she is tough, Elena told Jake. I have been in more firefights than most military pilots. If you need someone to carry supplies or ram something really hard, I am your girl. By the end of the week, Jake had more volunteers than he could use. He chose 12 ships and their crews, knowing that was probably all humanity could spare for an unofficial mission. Their fleet was not impressive by galactic standards. The flagship was the UEDS Defiance, an old exploration ship that had been retired from active duty. Ben Cooper and his engineering team had spent 5 days modifying it, with salvaged alien weapons and extra armor plating. The other ships were even less military. 3 were converted cargo haulers like Elena's. 2 were research vessels with experimental sensors. The rest were patrol boats that were normally used to chase smugglers in the outer solar system. Together, they had enough firepower to maybe fight a single Zephyrian destroyer. But what they lacked in weapons, they made up for in determination. Every person in the task force had volunteered knowing they would probably die. They were going anyway because it was the right thing to do. The night before they left, Jake called a final briefing. He stood in front of his volunteers and looked at each face. These were good people, the best humanity had to offer. Tomorrow we leave for the Geltar system, he began. I am not going to lie to you about what we are facing. These void devourers have scared off every major military power in the galaxy. They eat planets. Our weapons might not even hurt them. We might all be dead within a week. The room was silent. Nobody moved. I am giving everyone one last chance to back out, Jake continued. No shame in it. This is not your fight. The Ether are not your people. If you want to go home to your families, now is the time. Tony Williams stood up. Captain, with respect, sir, you are wrong. This is our fight, not because the Ether are human, but because they are people who need help. That makes it our fight. Amy Patterson nodded. The major powers think they can ignore this problem because it is not in their territory. But evil does not stay in one place. If the void devourers finish with the Ether, they will keep spreading. Someone has to stop them now. Dr. Green added, the Ether have been sending us updates on the situation. They have lost 6 colonies now. Their home world has maybe 2 weeks before the creatures arrive. If we are going to help them, it has to be now. Ben Cooper raised his hand. Captain, I have been working with the Ether technical data they sent us. Their quantum resonance technology is amazing. If we can combine it with human engineering, we might actually have a chance to hurt these things. Elena Rodriguez laughed. Besides, Captain, where else am I going to get a chance to ram my ship into a planet-eating monster? This is going to be the best story ever, assuming any of us live to tell it. Jake felt pride swell in his chest. These people were heroes, every one of them. They were scared, but they were going anyway. That was what courage meant. All right then, he said. We launch at 800 tomorrow. Dr. Green, I want you to send a message to Elder Veltar. Tell him humanity is coming to help. Tell him to hold on a little longer. The volunteers filed out of the briefing room, heading back to their ships to make final preparations. Jake stood alone, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the void devourers were destroying everything in their path. Soon, 12 human ships would try to stop them. The odds were terrible. Their ships were too small, their weapons too weak, their fleet too tiny. By every logical measure, they were going to fail. But Jake had studied human history. Humans had always done their best work when the odds were impossible. At Thermopylae, 300 Spartans had held off an entire army. At the Alamo, a small group of defenders had inspired a nation. During World War II, Britain had stood alone against the Nazis and refused to surrender. Maybe they would fail. Probably they would die. But they were going to try, and that was what mattered. The galaxy had given up on the ether, but humanity never gave up on anyone. Tomorrow they would find out if courage and determination could beat creatures that ate planets. Jake thought it was worth finding out. The human task force dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Geltar system, and Jake Sullivan felt his heart sink. Through the view screen of the UED's Defiance, he could see what had once been a thriving star system. Where 3 planets had orbited the sun, there was now only empty space that seemed to bend and twist light in wrong ways. "My God," whispered Amy Patterson from her station beside him. "They really are gone. The planets, the moons, everything. It is like they never existed." Dr. Rachel Green was studying the sensor readings with tears in her eyes. According to the ether records, those 3 worlds had over 200 million people living on them. Now there is nothing left. Not even debris. Jake forced himself to stay calm even though he felt sick. "Ben, what are the sensors telling us about those empty areas?" Lieutenant Ben Cooper worked frantically at his console. "Captain, this is impossible. The sensors say there is matter there, but also that there is no matter there. Space itself seems twisted. Whatever these void devourers do, it changes the basic laws of physics." Tony Williams spoke up from the weapons station. "Captain, I'm picking up movement near the 4th planet. Something big is heading toward the inner system." Jake looked at the tactical display. A massive shape was moving through space toward the remaining ether colonies. It was hard to see clearly because light seemed to slide off it instead of reflecting normally. The thing was bigger than a city, bigger than most moons. "That has to be one of the void devourers," Amy said quietly. "Look at the size of it. How are we supposed to fight something like that?" Before Jake could answer, Dr. Green received an incoming message from the ether homeworld. Elder Veltar's crystal voice filled the bridge, but now it sounded weak and full of despair. "Human friends, we are grateful you have come, but we fear you have arrived too late. The creatures have consumed 6 of our 7 colonies. Only our homeworld remains, and our energy barriers are failing. The largest void devourer will reach us within hours. We have perhaps 1,000 of your minutes left." Jake grabbed the communication device. "Elder Veltar, this is Captain Sullivan. We are here to help. Can you tell us anything about how to hurt these things?" "We have tried everything," the Elder replied. "Energy weapons pass through them. Missiles explode harmlessly. They seem to exist partially in normal space and partially in dimensions we cannot reach. Long ago, our ancestors spoke of creatures like these being defeated with quantum resonance technology. But those records are incomplete." Ben Cooper looked up from his station. "Captain, I have been studying the ether quantum crystal data they sent us. I think I might be able to build a resonance weapon, but I need time and materials from our other ships." "How much time?" Jake asked. "At least 6 hours, maybe more." Amy Patterson checked the tactical display. "The Void Devourer will reach the ether homeworld in 4 hours. We do not have that much time." Jake made a quick decision. "Tony, take us toward that creature. We need to slow it down somehow." "Elena, can you hear me?" Captain Elena Rodriguez's voice came over the communication system from her cargo ship. "I hear you, Jake. What do you need?" "I need you and the other cargo ships to start harassing that thing. Keep it busy while Ben works on his weapon. Do not try to hurt it, just make it pay attention to you instead of the planet." "You got it, Captain. Come on, people, let us go annoy a planet eater." The human fleet split up. Elena and 3 other ships moved to intercept the Void Devourer, while Jake kept the Defiance back so Ben could work. The first attack run was a disaster. Elena's ship opened fire with everything it had. Plasma cannons, missile pods, even the old projectile guns she used for asteroid mining. The weapons hit the creature and simply disappeared like they had been fired into empty air. The Void Devourer noticed the attack. It turned toward Elena's ship and reached out with what looked like a tendril made of twisted space. The tendril touched Elena's ship, and Jake watched in horror as the entire rear section simply vanished. Not destroyed, not exploded, just gone. "Elena, get out of there," Jake shouted into his communicator. "Trying, Captain." Elena's voice was strained. "Lost my engines and half my power. This thing is pulling me toward it." Tony Williams took the Defiance in fast, firing every weapon they had at the creature's center mass. The shots had no effect, but they did get the monster's attention. It released Elena's crippled ship and turned toward the Defiance. "It is coming after us now," Amy reported. speed increasing. We cannot outrun it in normal space. Jake felt the ship shaking as the Void Devourer's gravitational field started pulling them in. Ben, please tell me you have something. Working on it, Captain. Ben shouted over the noise. I think I know what the problem is. These things exist in multiple dimensions at once. We need to hit them in all dimensions simultaneously. Dr. Green was monitoring communications from the ether home world. Captain, the energy barriers around their planet are failing faster now. The approach of this creature is somehow weakening them. The next few minutes were chaos. The human ships took turns attacking the Void Devourer, trying to keep it distracted. They lost another ship when the creature grabbed it with those twisted space tendrils. Jake watched good people disappear into nothingness and felt rage building in his chest. This is not working, Amy said. Our weapons cannot touch it, and it is picking us off one by one. That was when Dr. Green had an idea. Captain, what if we are thinking about this wrong? The ether records say these creatures were defeated with quantum resonance. What if that does not mean weapons? What if it means communication? Communication? Jake asked. How do you communicate with something that eats planets? The ether are telepathic, Dr. Green explained quickly. They think in terms of harmony and resonance. What if these creatures used to be like the ether, but something went wrong? What if they became addicted to consuming matter and energy? Ben Cooper looked up from his work. That actually makes sense. If they exist in multiple dimensions, they might be experiencing reality differently than we are. What we see as destruction, they might see as feeding or even healing. So how does that help us? Tony asked while firing another useless barrage at the approaching monster. Dr. Green was already working at her station. If they used to be like the ether, they might still respond to the same kind of quantum resonance signals. Not as weapons, but as communication. I am going to try broadcasting ether peace songs directly at that thing. Peace songs? Jake could not believe what he was hearing. Rachel, that thing just ate 6 planets. Trust me, Captain. The ether have been studying these creatures since they arrived. They think the Void Devourers might be in constant pain, driven mad by existing between dimensions. The peace songs might help calm them. Jake looked at the tactical display. The Void Devourer was getting closer and they were almost out of ships. Do it. We have nothing left to lose. Dr. Green activated the ether communication system and began broadcasting the most beautiful sound Jake had ever heard. It was like crystal bells mixed with singing wind, a sound that seemed to reach directly into his mind and fill him with peace. The effect on the Void Devourer was immediate. The massive creature stopped moving toward them and began to writhe in what looked like pain or confusion. For the first time since the battle began, it made a sound of its own. The sound was horrible, like the screams of a billion dying stars. But underneath it, Jake could hear something else. Sadness. Loneliness. The sound of something that had been in agony for a very long time. It is working, Amy whispered. The creature is backing away from the planet, but their victory was short-lived. The Void Devourer's scream attracted the attention of others. Jake's sensors detected 3 more of the massive creatures approaching from different parts of the system. Captain, Ben said quietly, I think I understand what we are dealing with now. These things are not evil. They are sick. And there are a lot more of them than we thought. Jake Sullivan watched 3 more Void Devourers approaching on his tactical screen and felt despair creeping into his heart. The first creature had backed away from the ether homeworld when Dr. Green played the peace songs. But now 4 of the massive beings surrounded the human task force. Only 7 human ships remained operational and they were badly damaged. Captain, Amy Patterson said from her station, the creatures are not attacking us anymore, but they are not leaving either. It is like they are waiting for something. Dr. Green was still monitoring the communication channels. I am getting strange readings from my equipment. The Void Devourers seem to be talking to each other, but not in any language we understand. The signals are in dimensions our sensors can barely detect. Ben Cooper looked up from his work on the quantum resonance device. Captain, I have been thinking about what Dr. Green said. If these things used to be peaceful like the ether, what could have turned them into planet eaters? Before Jake could answer, Elder Veltar's voice came through the communication system. The ether leader sounded exhausted but hopeful. Captain Sullivan, our energy barriers have stabilized now that the first creature moved away. Your peace songs worked better than we dared hope, but we have discovered something troubling in our ancient records. What did you find, Elder? Jake asked. The creatures we call void devourers were once known as the sorrow singers. They were a peaceful species like ourselves, but they lived between the dimensions. Long ago, they tried to help other species by sharing their dimensional technology. Something went wrong. The technology made them hungry for energy and matter. The more they consumed, the more they needed. Eventually, they could not stop, Dr. Green gasped. They are addicts. They became addicted to consuming matter and energy, and now they cannot control themselves. Tony Williams spoke up from the weapons station. That is a sad story, but it does not help us stop them. Sick or not, they still eat planets full of people. Actually, Tony, it might help us a lot, Ben said excitedly. If they are addicts, then they are fighting their own nature. Part of them remembers being peaceful. That is why the peace songs worked. Jake was starting to understand. You are saying we can reach the part of them that used to be good? More than that, Captain, Dr. Green said. I think we can help cure them. The ether records mention something called resonance healing. If we can find the right frequency, we might be able to break their addiction to consuming matter. Amy looked at the tactical display. That is a nice theory, but we still have 4 planet-eating monsters surrounding us. How exactly do we heal something that big? Ben had been working on his quantum device while they talked. I think I know how. The ether gave us access to their historical databases. The sorrow singers were cured once before, millions of years ago. They were put into a deep sleep that lasted until recently. Something must have woken them up. Dr. Green checked her records. The ether say the first void devourer appeared 6 months ago. Right after a research team activated an ancient dimensional gate they found floating in space. The gate must have been some kind of prison. So someone accidentally let them out? Jake asked. Yes, but the important thing is that they can be put back to sleep. The ancient cure worked before. We just need to recreate it. Tony Williams did not sound convinced. And how do we do that with 7 beat-up ships and a bunch of improvised equipment? Ben smiled for the first time since the battle began. The same way humans have always solved impossible problems. We improvise, we adapt, and we refuse to give up. Jake made a decision. What do you need, Ben? I need all our ships to link their power systems together. We are going to broadcast a healing resonance that covers multiple dimensions at once. It will take everything we have, and if it does not work, we will be sitting here defenseless. And if it does work? Amy asked. If it works, we save the ether, cure the void devourers, and probably make history as the species that figured out how to heal dimensional addiction. Jake opened a communication channel to all the remaining human ships. All ships, this is Captain Sullivan. We are going to try something that has never been attempted before. We are going to heal our enemies instead of destroying them. Elena Rodriguez's voice came through, weak but determined. Her ship was barely holding together, but she was still fighting. Jake, this is Elena. My ship is mostly scrap at this point, but my power core is still good. Whatever you need, I'm in. One by one, the other ship captains agreed to the plan. They knew the risks, but they also knew this might be their only chance to save both the ether and the void devourers. Ben worked quickly to connect all the ship's power systems through quantum communication links. It was dangerous. If something went wrong, the feedback could destroy every human ship at once. But it was their best hope. Dr. Green prepared the healing resonance by combining ether peace songs with the ancient cure frequencies from the historical records. She had to guess at some of the settings because the records were incomplete, but she had studied ether culture for years and understood how their technology worked. Captain, she said, I need to warn you about something. This healing resonance will affect our minds too. We might experience what the void devourers are feeling. If they are in constant pain, we will feel that pain. Jake nodded. Understood. Everyone prepare yourselves. This is going to hurt. Amy coordinated the power transfer from all 7 ships. Power levels at maximum. All ships report ready. Ben activated his quantum resonance device. Dimensional frequencies locked in. We are broadcasting on 17 different dimensional levels simultaneously. Dr. Green took a deep breath and started the healing sequence. Beginning resonance healing now. The effect was immediate and overwhelming. Jake felt a wave of agony wash over him unlike anything he had ever experienced. It was the pain of existing between dimensions, of being hungry for something that would never satisfy the craving, of remembering what it was like to be peaceful and knowing that peace was gone forever. But underneath the pain, Jake felt something else. Hope. For the first time in millions of years, The Void Devourers were hearing a song that reminded them of who they used to be. The creatures around the human fleet began to change. Their twisted forms started to smooth out and become more symmetrical. The dark energy that surrounded them began to brighten, shifting from black to deep blue to silver. "It is working," Amy gasped through the shared pain. "They are changing back." But the process was not easy. One of the Void Devourers fought against the healing, its addiction too strong to break easily. It lashed out with tendrils of twisted space, trying to grab more matter to consume. The tendril struck Tony Williams' patrol ship and began pulling it in. "Tony, get out of there," Jake shouted. "Cannot do it, Captain," Tony replied. "My engines are dead. But you know what? I have always wanted to punch a planet eater in the face." Tony activated his ship's self-destruct sequence and rammed directly into the struggling Void Devourer's core. The explosion was not big enough to hurt the creature, but the shock of the impact combined with the healing resonance was enough to break through its resistance. Jake watched Tony's ship disappear in a flash of light, taking one of the bravest people he had ever known with it. But Tony's sacrifice worked. The last Void Devourer stopped fighting and began to heal. One by one, the four creatures transformed back into something beautiful. They were still huge, but now they glowed with soft silver light instead of consuming everything around them. They moved gracefully instead of hungrily, and when they spoke, it was with voices like singing crystals instead of screaming voids. "Thank you," the largest one said, its voice filling every human ship with peace. "We remember now. We remember who we were before the hunger took us. You have given us back ourselves." Dr. Green was crying, but she managed to speak. "What will you do now?" "We will sleep again, but this time by choice. We will dream of the peace you have shown us until we are strong enough to help others instead of consuming them. Someday, when we are fully healed, we will repay this kindness." The four transformed beings moved slowly toward the edge of the star system. As they traveled, they began to glow brighter and brighter until they looked like new stars. Then they faded from sight, gone into the deep sleep that would heal their wounded souls. Jake looked around at his remaining 6 ships. Half his task force was gone, but they had achieved something impossible. They had turned enemies into allies and saved an entire species without firing a shot in anger. "Elder Veltar," he said into his communicator, "the Void Devourers are gone. Your people are safe." The Elder's reply was filled with joy and wonder. "Captain Sullivan, what you have done here will be remembered for millions of years. You did not just save the ether. You saved the Sorrow Singers too. You proved that even the most lost souls can be redeemed." 3 months later, Jake Sullivan stood on the observation deck of the new Galactic Crisis Response Station, watching construction ships from dozens of species working together to build humanity's first permanent base outside the solar system. The station orbited the ether homeworld, a symbol of the friendship between two very different peoples. The 6 remaining human ships had limped home to Earth as heroes, but the real changes were just beginning. Word of what humanity had accomplished in the Geltar system spread across the galaxy faster than their ships could travel. The story grew with each telling, but the basic facts remained the same. When every major power in the galaxy had refused to help, humans had volunteered to face an impossible enemy and had found a way to save everyone. The response from the galactic community was immediate and dramatic. The Zephyrian Empire, which had dismissed the Ether's plea for help, now sent ambassadors begging for human military advisors. The Corvan hegemony offered to share their weapons technology in exchange for human tactical training. Even the ancient ethereal collective, who claimed they did not involve themselves in material conflicts, sent representatives to study human problem-solving methods. Amy Patterson walked up beside Jake, carrying a datapad with the latest reports. She had been promoted to admiral and was now in charge of the new Crisis Response Division. "The Galactic Council wants to meet with you again next week," she said. "They are offering humanity a permanent seat on the Security Commission." Jake laughed. 6 months ago, they censured us for getting involved in affairs beyond our understanding. Now they want us to help run galactic security. "That is politics for you," Amy replied. "But I think there is more to it than that. The other species are starting to realize that having the biggest guns or the most advanced technology does not always solve problems. Sometimes you need people who care enough to try impossible things." Dr. Rachel Green joined them at the observation window. She had been working with the ether scientists to combine human engineering with ether quantum crystal technology. The results were amazing. ships that could travel between dimensions, medical devices that could heal injuries thought to be permanent, and communication systems that worked across vast distances instantly. The joint research projects are going better than we hoped, Rachel reported. The ether way of thinking about problems combined with human practical engineering is creating things neither of our species could build alone. We just finished the prototype for a new type of hospital ship that can exist in multiple dimensions at once. It can reach accident victims anywhere in the galaxy in minutes. Ben Cooper approached the group grinning widely. He had been promoted to Chief of Experimental Technology and was having the time of his life working with alien scientists who appreciated his creative approach to making things work. "You have to see this," Ben said excitedly. "The Trilaxian Engineers Guild just sent us their entire technical database. They want to learn how we modify alien technology so effectively. Apparently, they have been following instruction manuals for thousands of years and never thought to just experiment and see what happens." Jake shook his head in amazement. It still seems unreal. 6 months ago, most aliens saw us as primitive newcomers who did not belong in galactic society. Now they are asking us to teach them how to innovate. Amy looked at her data pad again. It gets better. We have received over 300 requests for help from different species and colonies. Pirates attacking trade routes, natural disasters, political conflicts, scientific problems that have stumped their best minds for decades. They all want human advisors now. Can we handle that many missions? Jake asked. Not with just humans, Amy replied. But we do not have to. Remember what we learned in the Zeltar system. The best solutions come from working together. We are recruiting volunteers from every species in the galaxy now. Turns out a lot of people were just waiting for someone to show them that helping others was more important than protecting your own interests. Through the observation window, Jake could see ether crystal ships working alongside human cargo haulers to deliver supplies to refugee colonies. Zephyrian warships flew escort for Corvin medical vessels heading to disaster zones. Species that had barely spoken to each other for centuries were now cooperating on joint missions. Dr. Green pointed to a group of ships heading toward the hyperspace jump point. That is the task force going to help the Nexari Republic. Their sun is going unstable, and they need to evacuate 12 billion people. The old galactic powers said it was impossible to move that many people in the time they have left. What did we tell them? Jake asked. Ben Cooper grinned. We told them that impossible just means no one has figured out how to do it yet. The Nexari have amazing transportation technology, but no experience with large-scale logistics. We are providing human engineers and military coordinators. Together, we think we can save them all. Amy showed Jake another report on her datapad. The really interesting thing is how this has changed galactic politics. The old system was based on everyone protecting their own territory and interests. Now species are starting to form mutual aid agreements. If someone has a crisis they cannot handle alone, their allies automatically help. Just like humans have always done, Jake observed. We learned long ago that we are stronger when we work together. A communication alert sounded and Elder Veltar's crystal voice filled the observation deck. The Ether Leader had become one of humanity's closest friends and advisors. Captain Sullivan, I have wonderful news to share. Our long-range sensors have detected the sorrow singers in the deep void between galaxies. They are still sleeping, but their dreams are peaceful now. The healing you provided is working. Someday, when they wake, they will remember what you taught them about redemption and second chances. Jake felt a warm feeling in his chest. Somewhere in the darkness between stars, the beings that had once been called Void Devourers were learning to be at peace again. It had cost the lives of good people like Tony Williams and Elena Rodriguez, but their sacrifice had meaning. There is more news, Elder Veltar continued. The Galactic Archaeological Society has found records of 17 other species that were transformed by dimensional addiction like the Sorrow Singers. They are asking for human help to locate these lost peoples and attempt healing missions. Amy looked at Jake. 17 more species to save. Are you interested, Captain? Jake smiled and looked out at the busy space lanes around the ether homeworld. Ships from dozens of species were coming and going, carrying supplies, knowledge, and hope to places that needed help. The galaxy was becoming a different place, one where people helped each other instead of just looking out for themselves. Admiral Patterson, he said formally, I think humanity has found its place in the galaxy. We are not the strongest species or the smartest or the most advanced, but we might be the ones who care the most about helping others. That seems like a good job to have, Dr. Green laughed. Just promise me we will be more careful next time. I would rather not have to feel the pain of 17 different species of dimensional addicts. Ben Cooper was already pulling up technical specifications on his data pad. Actually, I have been working on an improved healing system that should reduce the psychological feedback by 80%. Plus, the new hospital ships can provide medical support during the healing process. Jake looked around at his friends and colleagues, the people who had volunteered to risk everything for strangers they had never met. They were planning to do it again and again for as long as the galaxy needed their help. 6 months ago, the galaxy had asked for help, and only humanity had answered. Now humanity was asking the galaxy to help others, and everyone was answering. It was a better way to live among the stars. Outside the window, a new ship was arriving. The marking showed it was from a species Jake had never heard of before. Probably another call for help. Another impossible problem that needed a solution. Jake smiled and headed toward the communication center. There was work to do.